What have you seen from BYU, from the film you've seen so far, and kind of what challenges are they going to present to you guys?
Good team, like they always are. I mean, they're a team that's had a tradition of winning for several decades, and you know, and it's the type of thing. You know, they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're just doing the same stuff they've done over the years. Play hard, have a lot of seniors, well coached, and you know, great tradition, great setting.
I know obviously you didn't have any input in this year's non-conference schedule, but what's your ideal non-conference schedule like in terms of level of competition and balance between home and road and those kind of things?
Have them all at home, and then yes, for my ideal, not anybody else's. Have them all at home and good competition. Some of them definitely games where you may have the upper hand as far as talent, so that you can develop your underclassmen for when you get into conference, so that you know, they get experience out there on the field. I mean, the important thing, you want the schedule that best prepares you for your conference, because that's what counts the most, is winning your conference.
Does this game hold any extra meaning for you, since it's playing against your alma mater? I know you did play football there, but...
You know, not really. I mean, I've been there several times, a lot, and I've, you know, the biggest thing, you go through town, and then, yeah, then you're in your routine, and then once you do that, everybody presents you so many problems out there on the field, it kind of preoccupies your attention. As you guys can all hear out there on the phone, we have a tremendous crowd here. You're missing an incredible time. I mean, there's popcorn, and there's beautiful girls in the background. There's refreshments, and I think a band's going to play here a little later on. So, you know, come out here next time so you can join in all the fun. Okay, let me see who out there in the crowd. So many people have their hands up. Let me. Okay, you and way in the back. Did you have a question?
So would it hold more meaning if you were going there to play rugby? Would it be more sentimental for you? Or?
Well, the thing is, once it comes to the coaching part, you're kind of occupied with your players and just the opponent. I mean, but no, it's not really the sport, because I have great memories there. I met my wife there, the whole thing,
Yeah.
And it's a great spot. But you know, once the game starts, it's your attention's kind of confined to the field and your sideline.
Is there anybody you're planning to see, or favorite places that you want to go? And I know you guys aren't going to be there very long, but
Don't really have the time, but I'll have some family and friends come to the game though.
How big of a problem does, or what's the biggest problem that their defense presents for the air raid?
Just really, I think a good solid team. I think a good solid team, and I think just well coached, well executed. You know, they kind of play off. They're going to make you, if they want to make you execute as many plays as possible to score. And then they're good on offense too. You know, they got a quarterback that runs around a little bit and that type of thing.
Okay, questions on the line?
Mike, obviously I know you let the defense do a lot of this stuff on their own. Is there any particular concerns you have about what their offense might do to your defense? Anything particularly good for you guys to do defensively?
Well, yeah, you know, you always worry about explosives and big plays. You know, you don't want to put a bunch of good plays together on defense and then have them get loose on you. And then, you know, we want to get turnovers and put pressure on the quarterback, but he moves his you know, he moves his feet pretty good. I don't know how fast he is, but he moves his feet pretty good, and he's a guy that can get out of the pocket and you know, hurt you when you feel like you got him hemmed in a little bit. And the biggest thing, we got to just play consistently and steady. I mean, they're a good offense. They run the ball good. They, you know, they can throw the ball some, and they're just, you know, they have a lot of weapons, a good defense that can do both, run it and throw it, and so we just got to play good on defense against them.
Coach, Starkman.com. In terms of the installation of the offense, do you feel like it went pretty efficiently considering you created a team that was geared toward the pass?
You cut in and out. Did what go efficiently?
I'm sorry, the installation of the offense, considering you inherited a team that was more geared toward the pass anyway?
I thought it went efficiently. I expected it to, really. I think some of our guys have emerged and stepped up in a quicker fashion than I expected. But it did install quickly, and things went pretty well for us.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Like Jason Franchuk in Provo, the Daily Herald. I was wondering, you talked briefly there about BYU. Any memories that stand out? I mean, when people ask you about your experience, can you kind of give a little insight to what really stands out about your time in Provo?
Shoot, there's way more than I can remember. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, I went to college there, so I mean that's one of the most memorable times of your life. So there's definitely a lot. Oh shoot! Like I say, everything. Freshman year.
How did you, let me narrow the scope then. How did you meet your wife then on campus?
We lived in the same apartments at King Henry. There's an apartment complex there called King Henry. We both lived there, and they got these big lawns out there. Her sister had married one of my former roommates, and so she introduced herself to me out there, and then then we would start seeing each other. You know, it's more like we became friends, and I'd hang out in her apartment, go somewhere, and then if she was still up, I'd go hang out in the apartment, and of course she'd watch. You know, you'd go there and they'd be watching MASH or something like that, and I'd change the channel to watch Gunsmoke. I mean, can you imagine watching MASH or even Saturday Night Live when Gunsmoke's on? I mean, it's almost sacrilegious to anything American. And I tried to get him back on track, which I think I did successfully. Sharon was a bit of a tough case, so I had to marry her where I could keep an eye on her a lot more frequently.
This is Scott Rafter with BlueCougarFootball.com. Question: we hear about the coaching fraternity exists, and just wondering if you and Bronco Mendenhall have have that fraternity, and if you've met and you guys have a relationship off the field and away from football.
Bronco's a good guy. I've known him over the years. I don't know him real well, but I've met him several times at, like you mentioned, the coaching gatherings and conventions and things. Used to meet him down there at the Fiesta Bowl deal. Good guy. We also know quite a few people in common. Probably one of the more interesting things about Bronco is that he's a really good surfer, and so getting some points of view on him from him on that subject is interesting. I mean, I've seen all his football stuff. We've watched 13 games worth to the point where you know, we're really not interested in seeing blue cougars. We're only interested in seeing red cougars. And no, the Bronco's an interesting guy and does a lot of interesting things, and I'd be more interested in talking to him about surfing than football at this point.
Mike, how many freshmen do you, true freshmen, do you see playing for you Thursday nights?
Quite a few, quite a few. I think by some accounts an alarming number. but I think that they've done well. And our case, we don't have some automatic red shirt policy. If you figure in the 2 deep, we don't red shirt you. We're going to get you out there on the field. But I'd have to think it through. I was scolded the other night for not having a depth chart, so I'm going to get right on that today. I mean, and then in doing that, I'll look at their classifications and count them up, and we'll have an answer for you as quickly as possible.
Coach, this is Jeff Call, Deseret News. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it's been like for you to be out of coaching for a couple of years, and then how you're feeling just days away from returning to the sidelines.
I'm looking forward to it. The one thing on this with football, because you get to practice a lot just like the players do. When you're out there as a coach, you're practicing all the time just like the players. So I'm anxious about the first game too. And by that I mean I stand in the relative position that I'm going to be on the sideline. In other words, you get the teaching done in the meetings, and so when I call the plays for team or pass skill or anything, I stand at this, on the sideline rather than right in the huddle. So we signal it in. So the players are, so me and the players are isolated from each other, just like it's going to be in the game. So that we have to communicate either non-verbally or shouting to the extent you would maybe have to in a game, for everybody to hear, and then so that we just develop the skill of here's what we want to run, here's what you need to execute. I'm over here, you're out there on your own. Communicate with each other and execute it. And so we kind of practice that, and then also it allows me to practice seeing the field. It allows me to practice, hey, did I like that play? Well, this guy didn't do this, or, we didn't have good leverage on that, so I should have called something else. So I mean, as coaches, we're out there practicing ourselves. So, I mean, it doesn't have that quality to me of oh wow, this is the first time I've coached since. I mean, I realize it's the first game, but I've been at it for several months now, as far as kind of a sense of it.
Hey, Mike, this is Jay Drew from the Salt Lake Tribune. Going back to the 80s when you were in Provo, what is, maybe if you could put a finger on one major thing that you took away from observing Lavelle Edwards and his philosophy, his style, what would it be?
Well, there's a lot more than one. He's easily one of the greatest coaches that's ever coached, and I think that's indisputable. I think, he's kind of a, well, and I know him a little. I'd like to know him a lot better, because, he's one of those guys that's quiet enough that there's a lot of kind of wisdom and stuff in there that you'd like to draw from. I always thought of him as a great balancer, a guy that, with all the forces from all the different directions, he's great at balancing things. He was a guy that never overreacted, didn't panic, and just kind of had faith in his system, what he did, and how he went about the things until it kind of corrected themselves. He trusted good people to do things, and so in the end, I mean, it was a product and environment of kind of trust and focus, and I think it's a foundation that still survives at BYU to an extent. I mean, football-wise, it's very hard to imagine what BYU would be like without Lavelle Edwards, and then also football in America, what it would be like without Lavelle Edwards. I mean, I'm not the only person that Lavelle Edwards influenced on throwing the football. And I think the argument could certainly be made that offensively we might make, I think it is I think offensively, we may look more BYU than BYU does if you reflect on the Lavelle Edwards days. You know what I mean? And I mean, there's plays out there that we're watching film the other day that we got, and not maybe we don't run it exactly like but we got from the golden age back there in BYU when Lavelle Edwards was there, and we run it like they did back then, except maybe we've adjusted this route or that route. Early in my coaching career, I used to go there and hang out during spring football, and of course Coach Edwards was there, and I'd hang out with Coach French most of the time, Roger French, and Norm Chow, and that whole group as they were throwing the ball all over the place, and it influenced me directly, specifically, and it's a core of a lot of the things we do offensively. In general, the philosophy of attacking the whole field, and then you take it a step further. Of course, the wishbone, they say everybody needs to touch the ball. Well, when we decided that was important too, and so it's really helped us offensively. And I think that I remember even, when Boston College beat Miami. I can't remember the quotes exactly, but they talked about, Lavelle Edwards and his group influencing them to throw the ball. So. Yeah, he's had an impressive legacy.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, you talked about having your receivers develop a little bit of nastiness. That's something they probably can't do during camp, but is that something that comes as the season goes on?
We'll try to push it during camp. I mean, we have a drill called Bull in the Ring where we circle it up and we'll match up whoever and have them tee off on each other every day just to remind them this is football. And occasionally you get the fresh scrubbed player that feels like his uniform doesn't necessarily have to be dirty, or that he's maybe a white collar type of player or something like that. And so we'll get him out there and Bull in the Ring and make sure that those impressions get back on track. I'm allergic to this room. Seriously, that's the only place I cough in. Yeah, go ahead.
Mike, I don't know if you can remember what it was like as you started your first game at Texas Tech, but I mean, you get a sense as to how capable your team is going into this game compared to how just generally capable that first Tech team was?
I've been asking myself that for over a month. I think that we're pretty capable. I think we've got a good cohesive staff that I think our teaching is has been at a little higher level just for no other reason that I've been a head coach now. I've been a head coach before, and so there's some things I didn't necessarily have to work through. I've got, I think, a more clearly defined staff. I think our players have had a really dedicated off season, worked incredibly hard. But the whole where are we at? Well, I don't know. I wish I could tell you. We've had good practices. We've had good consistent practices. There's only one practice that I can think of that we've had that I'm really ticked off about. I mean, I can think of a couple that maybe were a little below average, but I've not had a team where I could say that about, where we've had the quality and consistent level of practices that we've had. So I feel good about it. I feel good about our progress, but we haven't played a game, and the evaluation and that you get from especially your first 3 games is really critical as far as shaping the team and where you go from there. So I'm kind of curious myself.
Hey, Coach, have you seen much out of Jeff Toole as far as his leadership through camp?
Really good leader, does a really good job. Was elected captains. We elect him each week. He was elected captain, one of them, and then I think the team responds to him. Part of it is they know how dedicated Jeff is and how hard Jeff's worked, and so they do respond to him, and I think he provides a lot of direction. I know he did in the off season as far as lifting, running, and getting out there and throwing.
Any further questions for Coach?
Again, all five at a time.
Well, they're all scared.
Oh.
It's another coaching fraternity type of question here. BYU alum Steve Sarkeesian is coaching now at UW. And he was in the same position as you 2 years ago. Season opener at BYU. Just wondering if you could talk to him and ask some kind of advice from him about how it's going to be like.
He's a great guy, and I've been gotten to know him a little bit as as we're coaching here in the same state. No, and I hadn't realized that that was the first game that he went and coached as well. But well, of course, the other thing is as you might imagine, I mean, there's a rivalry thing. I mean, Steve's a great guy, and we'll and I enjoy talking to him. We don't typically share football secrets, us and the University of Washington, but certainly there's probably some level of détente that'll allow that to happen.
Mike, who are the other captains you mentioned? True.
Yeah, we elect two offense, two defense, two special teams. So Jeff Toole, our quarterback, Travis Long, our defensive end, Dion Buchanan, safety, and then Andre Lentz, tight end, and then Fernie, our kicker.
It's interesting to have a kicker as the captain.
Yeah, I thought it was too, but I'll tell you, you kind of have to meet this guy. He's a very engaging individual. I think if he's not I don't know what he's majoring in, and he probably ought to coach. He has a real good sense of our team and kind of the pulse of our team. When we gave, had players stand up and talk, I thought he gave a really compelling speech, and so. The more I've heard him talk specifically, and as I've seen him talk to the team, it makes a lot more sense. I mean, he because the players voted, elected him, but until I'd heard him, I mean, I had him in my office at one time, asking him about the team, what we needed to do to improve, and what he saw out there, as you bring in key players and interview them and talk to them. And then when he talked to our team, I mean, we called on key players to talk to our team during camp, and he was one of them. There's quite a bit more dimension to his mentality and his impact on this team than you would expect from a kicker. I mean, and he's a guy that. He's one of those guys that kind of holds things together, very common sense, very level-headed, and kind of really does a good job of seeing things for what they are.
Mike, hey, Jason Franchuk in Provo. One more question. I've always found it very fascinating from afar that you've worked in Lubbock, you've worked in Pullman now, but you went to law school in Pepperdine, and that's such a different picturesque area. Which I guess do you love both sides, or was Pepperdine harder to get used to than maybe the rural areas as far as just being to your comfort level?
I like all of it for different reasons. Pepperdine was nice. I mean, where I went to school, I mean, it was Malibu overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Now, I lived in the barrio in Canoga Park, where we had bars on the windows and helicopters flying overhead at night just to kind of keep things in check there in the neighborhood and make sure that the misbehavior wasn't unusually bad that night, that type of thing. But I liked it all. You know, I liked that. Even like when I lived in Canoga Park, I knew that I wasn't going to be there forever, so I better observe it and enjoy it while I was there. And I liked LA. I liked Canoga Park. I liked Malibu's hard to not like, but I didn't have the money to live in Malibu. And then I liked BYU and Provo, and lived all over town there. Pullman's a lot more like the town I grew up in. Pullman, really pretty. You know, you can see mountains off there in the distance. Kind of rural wildlife. Very down to earth people. Very direct, straightforward. I think that's one thing I really appreciate here in Pullman is. You know, this is a lot more like Wyoming where I grew up, as far as there's no real beating around the bush. Everybody's honest, sincere, and direct. And, you know, it's not like you're trying to layer through agendas and figure out what somebody's thinking, because you know they're definitely not going to respond how they say they're going to respond. So I appreciate that. And this is a small town where everybody's involved in everything, yet not so small that everybody's too busy, so I think it's been really good.
Thanks a lot for doing this today, Mike.
Well, thanks for having me. You know, we're having a band out here shortly.
Any further questions before we strike up the band?
Hey, Coach, so Toole will start for you Thursday?
You know, he's got most of the reps. If we were to play today, he would. And he's had a good camp, and I expect him to have a good week. But he's played well, and of course you know, Connor does some good things too. As far as the reps, we got to split them in some fashion, because you just don't have enough to go half and half. But if we were to play today, Jeff would be the starter.